Here's another releasing we have to have. Releasing the lost to receive the found. Releasing the lost to receive the found. Look at verse 15. Paul says this, "For this perhaps is why he was parted from you for a while, that you might have him back forever." Philemon, listen. Philemon, Onesimus left. Yes, I know it hurt. I know he took from you and stole from you, but you got to realize that the entire reason he's gone, the reason you lost is so that you can find something greater in this relationship. Are you willing to experience that? Are you willing to release the things that you've lost? Yes, he stole from you, and yes, you may never get that back. I will pay it. I will cover it, Philemon, but man, would you release him today? Would you release that loss in order to receive what is found? Some of the hardest things for us to release, friends, are those things that cannot be repaid, that cannot be redone or remade, those things that cannot be repaired, right? Some of you can't let go, and you can't release what was lost because the loss was your time. You can't give me back my years. You can't give me back my weeks. You can't give me back my youth. And you lost your time because of what that person did or said or did to your family. And friends, you need to release those things. Or maybe some of you are here today and you're saying, man, you can't give me back my innocence that you stole from me. And some of you need to release that. But those are so hard because they can't be repaid. They can't be remade. They can't be repaired. They just need to be released to the Lord. It's not like a chocolate cake on the counter, right? Anybody love chocolate cake? Anybody all about chocolate cake, right? The chocolate cake is on the counter. You come down and you find the kitchen. You're like, chocolate cake. Why is it not in my mouth, right? And so you go to the chocolate cake and you start chowing down. And you are so in love with this chocolate cake, you didn't even realize you ate the whole thing. And then your spouse comes down and we're going to Grandpa's house. Where's the chocolate cake I made? And you're like, what chocolate cake? Because it's everywhere, right? That's easy to repay, is it not? That's easy to remake or redo. Well, okay, we got to get to Grandpa's quick. Let's stop at the store, grab the chocolate cake. It's not the one I made, but those are relatively easy. Can I forgive over the chocolate cake? Can I release what was lost in order to find receive what is found? The restoration of broken relationships, though, requires releasing to receive. Here's another one. Release the old to receive the new. Release the old to receive the new. Look at verse 16. He said this, backing up a little bit for context. "For this perhaps is why he was parted from you for a while, that you might have him back forever. No longer as a bondservant, but more than a bondservant, as a beloved brother, especially to me, but how much more to you, both in the flesh and in the Lord." Sometimes if we're going to see broken relationships restored, we have to release the old to receive the new. Do you remember the couple I was talking about, the married couple that had committed adultery against each other? The husband had cheated on the wife, and then the wife, out of her hurt, wanted to get back at the husband, and so she cheated on him, and they came into my office, and their marriage was in shambles. And as we pieced things back together by the grace of God and by His truth, we were able to see so many things work through. But one of the things that they had to release was the fact that that marriage would never be the same. And the old version of their marriage, the old ideals and the expectations they had for that marriage, the old ways that they wanted it to work, they wanted it to be reserved for each other, they didn't want any intruders in that marriage. Man, they had to release that and let that go. But in releasing, friends, here's the beauty. God gives back. God can restore what the locusts have eaten. And they had to let go of the old, but as they let go of that old, they began to see something new. They began to see, and yes, that what was new, that new relationship, that new marriage, yes, it had scars, but friends, scars can be beautiful because scars tell a story. And scars tell the story for them of God working a work of forgiveness and restoration in that marriage and rebuilding and renewing. And sometimes when you have a scar, it is stronger than it was even before. And God gave something very beautiful to them. But for us, we have to release the old to receive the new. Do you have to do that today? Do you have to lay down the hopes or the expectations, or I thought my marriage was going to be like this, I thought my relationship would be like this, to be able to come back together, to be able to work through that issue, you have to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to let go of the old. I'm going to release that, and yet God will bring to us and give us something new, something glorious, something better even on the other side. The restoration of broken relationships requires releasing to receive, releasing the past to receive the future, the lost to receive the found, the old to receive the new, and also releasing the hurts to receive the healing. Notice what Paul said in verse 17. He said, so if you consider me your partner, he's like, Philemon, am I your partner in the gospel? Am I your partner in life? Like, are we not people who are doing this together? If you consider me your friend, if you consider me your partner, receive him as you would receive me. Receive him as you would receive me. And friends, that's really a lot of releasing of hurt that Philemon has to do. Like Paul is saying, hey, receive him as you would me, right? And Philemon's thinking in his mind, Paul, you're easy to receive, right? You didn't steal from me. You didn't take from me. I'm not out all the time and the effort and the energy, and I'm having to do all of his work now. That's not on you. And Paul's like, no. Receive him as you receive me. And to do that, you have to let go of a whole lot of hurt. And Philemon's got a lot of hurt, I'm sure. I mean, all of the extra work, all of the difficulty, all of the feelings of betrayal, the feelings of being stolen from, the feelings of fear that comes by knowing you had somebody like that in your house, and now you want me to let him back? For that broken relationship to be restored, there needs to be a releasing of those hurts. But when we do, friends, we can receive the healing, and it's only then we can. I was talking a while ago to a man in his 60s. And this man has a lot of hurts from his father. And his father has passed on, and it's only now that he's starting to understand and some of these, and get in touch with these hurts and these feelings that he has. And he's like, I didn't know I was carrying them, but now I do. And man, this is hard. And as I've been talking with him over time, I've been asking him, hey, do you want to let that go? Do you want to carry that, or do you want to find some freedom? Do you want to find some healing from that? He's like, I love healing, and I'm like, well, you've got to be able to release those hurts. You've got to let those hurts go. And he's like, what? I can't do that. I can't do that. That hurt too much. I'm not ready to do that. And he's still carrying that at 60 plus years old, and he's dealing with these hurts of the past. Friends, if we're going to be able to receive the healing that comes, we have to be willing to release those hurts. Now, what does it look like to release? It looks like Jesus over in 1 Peter chapter 2. Jesus in 1 Peter chapter 2. Notice what Jesus did. It says this, for to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. He committed no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. When he was reviled, he didn't revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten. Now that's a whole lot of hurt, Jesus. How did your heart hold all of that hurt? How did you endure all that hurt? Did you just shut down, go stoic, and just muscle through it? No. Jesus had a way of handling those things so that the hurts of his heart did not lodge themselves into his heart, become sin and become bitterness and become angry sinfulness. He was able to release those. Notice what it says. When he was reviled, he did not revile. When he suffered, he didn't threaten, but he continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. There it is, friends. He continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. Jesus gave himself. Jesus gave the situation. Jesus gave the hurts. And did he have hurts? He absolutely hurt. If you don't think it hurt when Thomas didn't believe him, if you don't think it hurt when Peter betrayed him, if you don't think it hurt when all the disciples deserted him, that hurt. What did he do with that hurt? What did he do with the hurt when people were persecuting him, when the crowds were rejecting him, when the soldiers were nailing him to the tree? What did he do? He continued entrusting that. He continued giving that over to the Father. He gave it over to the Lord, and he's like, man, I cannot hold this, and I give this to you. God, you are a righteous judge. God, you are a judge who sees things perfectly and will bring justice to bear on this situation. Even though the rulers of this day have failed me in court of justice, God, you are my judge. You are my jury. You are my justifier. And he released it to the Lord. He gave it over to his Father. And friends, that's what we have to do with these things. When it comes to the past, we don't just kind of like go, today it's gone. No, we have no power to release things. Rather, in prayer, we come to the Lord. We get on our face and we say, Jesus, I'm putting this at your feet. This hurts so much, and I want it differently. And this was not how I planned it, but God, I'm releasing it to you today. I'm giving it into your hands today. And sometimes, friends, we have to do that often. Sometimes we have to do that daily until those every single day when it comes back up and those hurts come back up or the injury of it comes back up, man, we have to come back and release it once again. We have to give it over to the Lord. Some of you have something to give to Jesus. Some of you have something, I can feel it getting quiet in here, and some of you have something you need to give over to the Lord. Maybe it was an interaction with your spouse, or maybe it was a situation with your kid. Maybe it was something in your past, and you've been holding on to that thing, or a parent, or a boss, or a coworker, man, and you are just you have not been able to get rid of that thing, and you are carrying it. You are carrying it so much. Your soul knows it, and your soul hurts for it, but you carry it in even your body. You feel it. You feel the tension. You feel it in the physical health that has failed because of it. You feel it. And friends, you got to release those things. If you want to see the good that God wants, if you want to see restoration to come, it begins by releasing and letting it go. And maybe you just need to release the person. Maybe you need to release the specific incident. Maybe you release the hurt. Whatever it is, friends, give that to Jesus. Would you do that today? Would you do that today? Some of you are here today and you're like, man, my parents were not around growing up. And they were gone. Or some of them were there, but they acted as if they weren't. And you need to let that go today. And you've been holding that against your mom or holding that against your dad, and you just need to lay that down at Jesus' feet and go, God, I can't change that. I can't change that person. I have nothing to do, but man, it hurts so much. And I want to hold on to this. I want to keep grappling with this, but I need to give this to you today. Friends, when you begin to release, the future is possible. What is lost can be found. You can receive something that is new, a new version of your present that will be fundamentally different than what you knew before, a new version of that relationship that can be even better, not denying what has happened, but can still be good, can still be the best version that you can see. To receive that healing, release those hurts today. The restoration of broken relationships requires releasing to receive. Our last point this morning, point number 3, there are no enduring relationships without forgiveness. There just aren't. There are no enduring relationships without forgiveness. And that's the story of Philemon. That's the story of Philemon. As Paul is writing this to Philemon, as he's writing this to the church, man, he's writing to Philemon, and you got to know the entire church has got it out for Onesimus. And he's like, man, we need to be restorers. We need to be reconcilers, friends. Let's work through these things. And he's appealing, going, man, there are no enduring relationships without forgiveness. He's like, Philemon, if it isn't you, guess what? It might be your wife someday. It might be Aristarchus. It might be one of the other people. But eventually, we're all going to hurt each other. And eventually, we're all going to need forgiveness. And if you can't do that here, man, you're not going to be able to do it anywhere. Release. Because there are no enduring relationships without forgiveness. Notice what he said. He said such gracious words to Philemon. He said this, verse 21, confident of your obedience. I love that. He's like, confident of your obedience, I write to you, knowing that you will do even more than I say. At the same time, prepare a guest room for me, for I am hoping that through your prayers I will be graciously given to you. Paul's confidence is in Philemon's forgiveness. He is confident that Philemon will do what he says, right? Now, that's not just because Paul's like, I know you, Philemon. You're going to do it. You're so passive and submissive, and you'll just do everything I want, right? No, that's not what he's saying. He's like, I know you, Philemon. I know that your life, and I know when you came to Christ, and I know you had some stuff that needed to be forgiven. And he's like, I was there. I remember it, and I know your story. And I know how Jesus impacted your life and transformed your life. And he's like, guess what? That's the story of Christians. We are a forgiving people because we've known forgiveness as well. Paul knew that as well. I mean, Paul was the guy. Yes, he came to Christ on the Damascus road, and he experienced the forgiveness of God. He was persecuting Jesus' church. He's like, Paul, why are you persecuting me? And he's like, why are you opposing me and coming after me? And he's like, look at your life. And Paul's like, man, I was an insolent opposer, and I was a violent aggressor. He was dragging off the Christians, throwing them into prison. He was going after them and pursuing them as a violent aggressor. And then, not only receiving forgiveness from the Lord, he comes into the church and everybody's rightfully afraid of him. But you know what's happened? Barnabas, and then another, and then another, and then another, and they're forgiving him. They're releasing him. And they're welcoming him back into fellowship. They're welcoming him into this place of nearness. Paul experienced forgiveness as well. And he's like, when you experience forgiveness, when you truly know forgiveness in your life, you can't help but, man, that's your life story. You live to be forgiven and to forgive. And that's what Jesus called us to do. In fact, Jesus knew that. And why could Paul be so confident? Because he knew that he was forgiven and Philemon were forgiven. And Jesus knew that as well. In fact, when he taught us to pray, he knew that broken relationships were going to be part of human existence, right? And so he even added it into his very own prayer. Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. You know this very well. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And right after he's done with the prayer, do you know what Jesus begins to talk about? He doesn't talk about the glory of God more. He doesn't talk about how awesome it is and all the different things God can provide and will provide so you can trust him. He doesn't even start to talk about sin and temptation. He talks about forgiveness. He knows the Lord's Prayer. He teaches them the Lord's Prayer. And in the midst of that, he says, the most important part is forgiveness. He says, for if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive yours. That's pretty crazy, right? To think that God won't forgive us if we don't forgive them. If we won't release them and we continue to hold on to it, God's like, I'm not forgiving you yet. Now, what is that? Think of it as a loving father. What loving father does not want those relationships between his children to be restored? What loving father wants to just kind of let it go? No. He's like, hey, our thing can be better and can be fine once you get your thing with that person dealt with. Then we can be restored. Then we can be okay. And there's also that sense of going like, who does this? Followers of Jesus. The followers of Christ. Those who have been forgiven. Jesus even assumes, he's like, as we have forgiven our debtors. There are no enduring relationships without forgiveness. I remember talking to my daughter Alex, who's at college. She called me because she's got COVID and she's quarantining and everything. So all of a sudden, Dad gets 2.5 hour phone conversations with his college daughter. It's great. I love it. But I was telling her about a conflict I was having with somebody, and she was hearing it, and you know, we're kind of going back and forth. I'm sharing some of the hurts that I had and things that were going on in that. And she's like, Dad, I know you. You're going to be able to resolve it, and it's going to be fine, because you always resolve them. And I'm like, no, that just doesn't always happen, okay? Like, relationships don't work that way, girl. I wish that was the case, right? And I was telling her, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure it's going to be, and I'm going to do what I can to see that it does. But there's a chasm right now, and that person's on one side, and I'm on the other. And I was telling her, I'm like, I still feel like I don't know if this thing's going to get fixed. And the utter fear and insecurity and the helpless and hopeless feeling of going like, I got nothing in myself to make this thing better. All I got is Jesus. But Jesus is enough, is he not? Jesus is enough, and there are no enduring relationships without forgiveness. And I had to put that into practice in that situation. I had to release, and they had to release, and we were able to work through it because there was forgiveness. Friends, today, forgiveness is releasing. It begins with releasing. It says, I'm going to let you go. The thing you said, it just devastated me. The way you hurt me, the way you betrayed me in front of those people, the way you stole from me and took from me. Forgiveness is saying, I release you and I'll let you go. Would you do that today? I think the Lord wants to bring healing. He wants to change your future. He even wants to change the present. But it starts by releasing and giving it to him. Would you do that today? In fact, why don't we take a moment? Let's bow our heads right now.